Imagine turning off your home's Wi-Fi router, literally taping over every tiny LED light on your electronics and downing this hyper-specific cocktail of supplements.
Oh, wow.
Right. And all of that just to survive a standard Tuesday night sleep. Like, you aren't training for the Olympics or anything. You're just trying to go to bed.
Yeah, it sounds exhausting, honestly.
It really does. But today, we are diving into a single comprehensive article that breaks down the viral linguistic phenomenon driving people to this kind of, well, extreme mathematical approach to everyday existence.
Right. It's a shift that has basically completely saturated our cultural landscape here in 2026.
Exactly. We're looking at a simple grammatical suffix that somehow escaped the obscure corners of the internet to define our entire modern obsession with hyper-optimization.
We are, of course, talking about the concept of maxing.
Yes, maxing. And the irony is, if you are tuning in to this deep dive right now, you, the learner listening to us, are probably engaging in it.
You definitely are.
Yeah, you're actively trying to level up your understanding of the world. So in the current vernacular, you are knowledge maxing.
I love that.
Okay, let's unpack this, because it's honestly fascinating how a single piece of slang has become the defining framework for how we live.
It really is. And, slang is so rarely just kids trying to confuse adults.
Right.
Or just temporary jargon.
Right. People dismiss it, but it's deeper.
Exactly. If you look at it sociologically, slang is actually a tribal survival mechanism. Human beings invent new words because we experience a sudden shift in our environment, or maybe a new collective feeling.
And the old vocabulary just fails to capture it.
Right. We use slang to identify who is on the inside of our cultural moment and, well, who is on the outside.
Yeah, like the source article points out with niche community slang. If you're a skier and you talk about finding fresh pow.
Meaning new, untouched snow, yeah?
Right. Or a surfer talking about trying to hang 10, getting all 10 toes over the nose of the board. Those phrases act as these exclusive markers.
For sure. If you know what they mean, you belong to the tribe.
And if you don't, you're just a tourist.
Yeah, exactly. And then, on the flip side, you have universal slang. Words like cool or legit.
Which everyone uses.
Right. They're standalone adjectives that pretty much everyone on the planet understands. But maxing completely breaks both of those traditional molds.
How so?
Well, it isn't the standalone descriptor at all. And while it started out highly niche, it violently broke out into the mainstream. It operates entirely as a suffix.
Right. You attach it to the end of an existing word.
Exactly. You use it to exaggerate an action, signaling that you aren't just doing a task, you are pushing it to its absolute biological or mathematical limit.
Which is such a strange, unnatural evolution for language. I mean, we don't usually just invent new suffixes out of thin air and superglue them to everyday nouns.
No, we really don't.
But the source traces this back to the 2010s, right? It actually started in online gaming.
Yeah, specifically as a condensed form of the word maximize. It comes from a concept called min-maxing in role-playing games.
Wait, min-maxing, how did that work?
So players would figure out the absolute most efficient, clinical way to get the best possible outcome for their digital avatar.
Okay.
They would minimize all the traits they didn't need and maximize the specific stats they did, like pouring all their points into their character's strength or magic abilities.
Ah, I see. Even if it meant the character was completely unbalanced in every other way.
Exactly. They don't care about balance, just maxing out that one specific stat.
Okay, wait. Online gamers in the 2010s, that actually makes perfect sense.
Right.
Because in those games, everything is quantifiable. You have a literal dashboard showing your exact hit points, your armor rating, your charisma level.
You literally just stare at the screen and watch the numbers go up.
Right. So if gamers use this to max out a fictional character's stats, and now we're using it to describe our own lives in 2026, are we basically just viewing ourselves as digital avatars? Is maxing just our attempt to gamify our everyday real-world existence?
That is a brilliant way to look at it. The mechanism of gamification is exactly what's driving this. Look at the trajectory of the past decade.
We've been strapping wearable tech to our bodies for years.
Exactly. Smartwatches, sleep rings, continuous glucose monitors. We track our heart rate variability, our daily steps, our REM sleep cycle.
Screen time, all of it.
Yeah. We have literally turned the messy analog experience of being human into a neat, digestible data set.
And human brains are hardwired to love a clear metric of success. We love a high score.
We do. When you are surrounded by that much data about yourself, your brain's dopamine system just gets hijacked.
Right.
You get a little hit of dopamine every time the graph goes up and the ring closes on your watch. It becomes completely inevitable that you start viewing your daily routines as a competitive game.
A game where your personal stats can and absolutely should be optimized.
Precisely.
Which perfectly explains how this word escaped the gaming forum and landed in the physical world. I mean, it became so mainstream that the Merriam Webster dictionary actually added it for 2026.
They did, yeah.
They define maxing as, let me check the source. The practice of optimizing a specific aspect of one's life, often to an extreme degree.
And that caveat, often to an extreme degree, is doing a lot of the heavy lifting there.
Oh, for sure.
When this first crossed over from gaming, it was intensely focused on the physical body. The early classic example was looks maxing.
Right, someone striving to enhance their physical appearance, but it's not just like buying a nice shirt or getting a haircut, is it?
No. Looks maxing implies viewing your face and body as a fixer-upper project that must be ruthlessly optimized.
So we're talking about the jawline exercises, the elaborate skincare routines.
Yeah, and sometimes even pushing into cosmetic procedures, all pursued to a seemingly obsessive extent.
Wow.
What's fascinating here is how the scope has shifted. It started with physical appearance, but by 2026, the application of maxing has just exploded.
It's everywhere now.
It has become a universal linguistic tool to describe diving wholeheartedly into nearly any pursuit imaginable.
And because it's grown so broad, it carries a very distinct duality, doesn't it?
Exactly. It's used dead seriously to describe intense, genuine effort toward a goal, but it's also used ironically to poke fun at our modern hyperfixations.
Right. It's like we developed a linguistic inside joke. We use the language of intense optimization to describe completely mundane things.
Just to highlight how absurd the pressure to be productive has become.
Yeah. So let's look at the taxonomy of maxing, like the real-world applications the source mentions.
The way this actually manifests in daily life reveals a lot about our collective psychological state. If we look at the serious applications first, we see things like gym maxing and money maxing.
Gym maxing being the person constantly in the gym, rigidly tracking their macros, optimizing their physical strength and endurance.
Right. And money maxing is the extreme dedication to growing wealth.
But not just putting $50 in a savings account, right?
Oh no, it's optimizing every single penny. Day trading, tracking micro-investments, turning the acquisition of capital into the central driving force of your waking life.
Which, I get that. Both of those behaviors are driven by a need for tangible security.
Exactly. You can see the muscle grow. You can see the bank account balance rise.
Right. They provide highly visible metrics of success in a world that, honestly, often feels deeply unstable.
Very true. But it's one thing to apply this mathematical rigor to your savings account. It's entirely another when this optimization mindset invades the most passive, vulnerable parts of our biology.
Which brings us back to sleep maxing.
Yes, sleep maxing.
This is the one that really highlights the absurdity of the current culture because, I mean, sleep is an autonomic function. You get tired, you lie down, you lose consciousness.
But people are turning it into a competitive sport.
They really are. They are trying to hack the biological process, taking highly specific, staggered combinations of magnesium and L-theanine.
Sipping formulated nighttime teas, utilizing blackout curtains, and rigidly banishing the smartphone hours before bed.
And like we touched on earlier, manually switching off the home Wi-Fi router just to prevent invisible signals from disrupting their rest.
Yeah, it's intense.
It's like they're treating their own brain like a smartphone that needs its background apps force closed. You're basically turning your suburban bedroom into an offline sensory deprivation chamber.
It reveals a profound anxiety about lost time, honestly.
How so?
Well, sleep is technically an 8-hour period where you are producing nothing and achieving nothing.
Right, you're just unconscious.
But by sleep maxing, you transform that passive, unproductive time into an active pursuit of biological perfection. You aren't just resting, you're tactically recovering.
Tactically recovering. That is wild. And from the purely biological, this optimization mindset bleeds into the deeply psychological, which brings us to personality maxing.
Ah, yes. This is defined as working incredibly hard to boost your social skills and become highly entertaining to others.
The mechanism behind this is just wild to think about. We live in this attention economy where social media has totally blurred the line between our private lives and public broadcasting.
Right. If you aren't entertaining, the algorithm ignores you.
And if the algorithm ignores you, you feel invisible. So people start systematically trying to optimize their charisma. The article mentions they analyze their own banter, they curate their anecdotes.
They treat human connection not as a natural bond, but as a trainable skill.
You are essentially treating your own personality like a product feature that needs a software update.
It's a direct and honestly, somewhat tragic reaction to the modern loneliness epidemic. People feel isolated, so they apply the only framework society values right now, relentless optimization.
Just to try and solve their lack of connection.
Yeah, but treating socializing as a performance metric is completely exhausting.
Which perfectly explains why the ultimate counter trend emerged. Because if you spend your entire life gym maxing, money maxing, sleep maxing, and personality maxing, eventually your system is going to crash.
It has
to nothing maxing.
The practice of spending the entire day in bed, barely moving, doing absolutely zero.
No, wait. Conceptually, nothing maxing is a complete oxymoron, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
Because the entire premise of the suffix maxing implies active effort, right? Pushing a stat to its limit. How can you maximize a state of zero? Isn't that literally just taking a day off?
It is an oxymoron, but that linguistic contradiction is exactly the point. It is a rebellion.
A rebellion against the productivity pressure.
Yes. In a culture that demands constant measurable output, simply saying, hey, I'm relaxing today, feels almost guilty, like you're failing at the game of life.
Right, you feel like you're falling behind.
So nothing maxing is a defense mechanism. It allows a burnt-out person to take a day off, while ironically cloaking their rest in the aggressive vocabulary of the hustle culture they are trying to escape.
Oh, that makes so much sense. You are aggressively, competitively doing absolutely nothing, and you are going to be the absolute best at it.
Exactly. It's a shield against the guilt of unproductivity.
But, I mean, the very fact that we need a shield against that guilt points to the darker reality of this whole trend, doesn't it?
It really does. The source explicitly warns about this. When people are going to these lengths, treating their faces as projects, their sleep as a tactical operation, and their rest as an ironic competition optimization, stops being a tool for self-improvement.
And becomes what?
A significant psychological liability.
Wow. Yeah, the burnout mechanism here has to be severe.
It is. If you gamify your life, you are implicitly agreeing to the rules of a game where the stats must always increase.
But biology isn't a video game.
Exactly. We age, we get sick, markets crash.
Right. What happens when your gym stats plateau? Or what happens when an unexpected medical expense ruins your money-maxing spreadsheet?
The cognitive dissonance of failing to optimize an unoptimizable reality creates crushing anxiety.
And it also demands an extreme level of tunnel vision, doesn't it? Like hyperfixation requires you to allocate all of your cognitive resources to one specific metric.
Absolutely. If you are devoting everything to money maxing, your personal relationships are starved of attention.
And if your entire focus is looks maxing, your intellectual and emotional development takes a backseat.
You become incredibly proficient at one specific sliver of existence while remaining completely stunted in every other area.
There is a concept from the article that captures this perfectly, the contentment trap.
Yes. The constant drive to optimize inherently breeds unhealthy comparisons.
And it fundamentally destroys a person's ability to just be content.
Because contentment requires acceptance of the present state, whereas optimization demands constant dissatisfaction with the present state in service of a better future.
That is so true, and you can see this baked right into the grammar of the slang itself.
How so?
Well, maxing ends in ing. It is a present participle. It implies a state of continuous, ongoing action. You're always maxing.
You are on a treadmill.
Exactly. Therefore, by definition, you are never actually maxed.
The very structure of the word denies you a finish line.
Yes. If the goal is always optimization, the finish line is a complete illusion. It moves every single time you take a step toward it.
Right. You hit a financial goal, but inflation happens, so you have to money max even harder.
Or you get your 8 hours of sleep, but your smartwatch tells you your up sleep phase was 4 minutes too short, so you need a whole new nighttime routine.
You are perpetually chasing a ceiling that just doesn't exist. You can never just sit down on the couch and say, I am enough right now.
That sounds so exhausting.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the antidote to this endless cycle of optimization isn't to just stop trying to improve.
Right, because wanting to be financially stable or physically fit, those are good things.
Wanting to be a charismatic, engaged friend, these are inherently good desires. The issue is entirely about proportion.
It's the difference between drinking a glass of water and trying to swallow a fire hose.
Exactly. Balance is the only thing that prevents a healthy commitment from curdling into a toxic obsession.
Right.
Like going to the gym to relieve stress and build endurance is a healthy habit. But gym-maxing to the point where missing a single workout causes a full-blown panic attack about your declining stats, that is a pathology.
We have to recognize when the tool of self-improvement has become a weapon we are using against our own peace of mind.
Very well said.
It is wild to look back at the journey of this one little linguistic quirk.
It really is a journey.
I mean, we started in the niche, mathematically obsessed corners of 2010's online role-playing games, looking at digital elves and warriors.
Okay.
And we traced that exact same instinct all the way to 2026, where it has blossomed into this massive cultural framework. It dictates how we invest, how we communicate, how we shut down our internet routers in the dark.
And ironically, how we justify staying in bed all day doing absolutely nothing. It's a perfect diagnostic of our collective psychology.
Yeah.
The language we use reveals exactly what we value.
And right now, we value control.
Exactly. In a world that feels increasingly chaotic and unpredictable, maxing gives people the illusion that if they just try hard enough, they can perfectly control their own biological and social destiny.
So to you, the listener, we have to ask, why did you tune in to this deep dive today? Did you consume this breakdown purely for the joy of curiosity, just to understand an interesting quirk of modern culture?
Or are you actively knowledge maxing right now?
Yeah. Are you aggressively optimizing your brain's input while driving to work or folding the laundry, trying to squeeze one more drop of productivity out of your day?
As you carry that question with you, consider this final thought.
Okay.
We've explored how maxing inherently demands hyperfixation on isolated individual traits. But if we spend all our precious energy obsessively trying to max out these fragmented parts of ourselves,
Perfecting our sleep, maximizing our money, optimizing our looks.
right, does that fractured focus actually prevent us from optimizing the whole picture? By trying so desperately to max out the specific parts, are we accidentally neglecting to just live the whole life?
Oh, something to think about the next time you check your stats.
Definitely.
A huge thank you to you for joining us on this deep dive today, for bringing your curiosity, and for exploring the weird, wild ways we try to make sense of the world.
Thanks for listening.
Until next time, keep questioning the systems around you, and maybe leave the Wi-Fi router plugged in tonight. Take care.